keep pushing their foot. But most of the officers there were black officers, and they live in these ghettos. 'Cause we know that the sisters who have those jobs, the women who have those jobs, and the majority, those people just have to work someplace, And like Joan used to when we got did get her permission to have literature to read, and that was after like around 10 or 12 months, And they had to be sent to the library, and then she could go to the library and she could read for 45 minutes, and after she finished reading, then they would put the books in the library, But the people that were in the jail couldn't read it. So I can't say that she had any kind of freedom at all, because they were just slick with what they did.
Afeni had beaten the case, but she hadn't escaped the war. Because outside that courtroom, the movement was changing. The Panthers were fracturing. Former comrades were being imprisoned. Others were disappearing underground. Informants had poisoned trust. And the extraordinary political movement that had consumed Afeni's young adulthood was beginning to buckle beneath government repression. And with the child that would eventually inherit much more than her name. But now, Shakur had become more than a surname. It belonged to an extraordinary political family whose relationships were sometimes biological, sometimes marital, and sometimes forged through ideology, struggle, and survival. And Afeni's little boy was about to grow up right smack in the middle of it. Before the boy could understand politics, before he could understand race, before he could understand America, his mother had placed a memory of rebellion, racial trauma, and resistance directly into his bloodstream. But a revolutionary name was only the beginning, because look at the people surrounding him. There was Lumumba Shakur, Afeni's husband, a political organizer, a man connected to the world that transformed Alice Faye Williams into Afeni Shakur. The name endured far longer than the marriage itself, and soon, another Shakur would enter Tupac's life. A man the little boy would come to know not as a revolutionary, not as an activist, not as a future federal fugitive, but simply as a father, Mutulu Shakur. Afeni married Mutulu in 1975. He became an important father figure to Tupac. He was a political activist, a community organizer, and an acupuncturist involved in experimental efforts to treat addiction in Black and Latino communities. To history, those are biographical details, because adults encounter revolutionary history through organizations, movements, books, ideologies. Children encounter it through people. They hear conversations they're supposedly too young to understand. They notice when adults suddenly lower their voices. They recognize fear before they understand its cause. They learn which names can be spoken openly and which ones make the entire room go quiet. Tupac was growing up inside the afterlife of the Black Panther movement, and nearly everyone around him carried scars from it. Then came 1981. An armored Brinks truck was robbed in Rockland County, New York. A guard and 2 police officers were killed. Federal authorities eventually accused Mutulu Shakur of participating in the conspiracy surrounding the robbery. They also accused him of involvement in the 1979 prison escape of another revolutionary whose name had become legendary. Her name was Assata Shakur. Mutulu disappeared underground. Tupac was approximately 10 years old, and once again, a man occupying the role of a father was suddenly gone. Imagine what that means to a child. One day there's a man in your home, a teacher, a protector, a father, then suddenly, His face is appearing on wanted posters. Adults become careful with telephones. Address changes. Questions stop receiving answers. And so entered Geronimo Jaga, decorated Vietnam veteran, Black Panther leader, and Tupac's godfather. Ji-Jaga was convicted of murder. He maintained his innocence. 1 year became 5, 5 became 10, 10 became 20, 20 became 27. Then the conviction collapsed. A court overturned it after finding the prosecutors had withheld evidence favorable to his defense. 27 years. An adolescence, a young adulthood, an entire generation gone. And Geronimo Jaga wasn't some revolutionary Tupac discovered years later in a history book. He was his godfather. Now, pull the camera back. Look at the entire picture. Because this is where Tupac Shakur's childhood begins to look very different. These weren't revolutionaries Tupac discovered in books. These were the adults around his family. The Panther 21 was an ancient history. His mother had been one of them. Government infiltration wasn't some abstract concept he encountered in a classroom. His mother had lived it. Political imprisonment wasn't theoretical. Men he loved disappeared behind prison walls. Being a fugitive wasn't something that happened in movies. People inside his extended family actually went underground. Revolution wasn't history to Tupac. In fact, history knew his address. But Afeni gave her son something else. A warning, because there was one lesson from the Panther years that she never forgot. Always watch the people around you. And as Tupac's career began to accelerate, Afeni started watching the people around him. Different decade, different movement, different battlefield. Same question. Who can you trust?